You won't be the fastest in the world if you don't have the best genetics. But we're gonna give you 5 key things that you can use to reach your speed potential, and we're gonna start right now. Technique will make you faster. So that first key concept is that technical speed aspects are tied to movement patterns. And movement patterns like warming up our feet, doing PVC pipe walks, loosening those feet up, gripping with your toes around that PVC pipe, and warming up your feet properly, warming up your shins, warming up your knees is gonna lead to better technical execution and technical comprehension. So we also have to understand what technical execution is needed if we're coming out of the blocks, if we're leading into that drive phase, and what type of controlled trunk positions will we have. And so if we are coming out of the blocks, let's say we're getting ready for a 40-yard test, or even sprinters, we've got to think about having a steep shin angle as we come out of that drive phase, as we're trying to accelerate. We want to make sure that we have a nice isometric action here in the ankle. We get that steep shin angle that drops, and then that's going to help us propel forward. As we propel forward, we want to make sure that we control our trunk. We don't want to come out of the blocks super upright right away. We also don't want to come out of the blocks with our chest here, because that could expose us to some hamstring issues. That's also not going to help us propel forward down the track. We want to be able to see the shin angle in our hip and our trunk aligned together to help that propulsion as we're moving forward. And then finally, when we're working out of the blocks, we have to think about how our feet are grounding. So when we're running in the acceleration period, we want to focus on grounding more plantar flexed here so that we can keep driving forward. We want to see that ability to propel forward. And that foot striking is going to change after we go from the drive phase, the acceleration period, into max mechanics, where we're going to get a little bit more grounding on the middle of our feet. But in the first 4, 5, 6 strides, we want to focus on proper posture, proper shin angles, and also having the foot striking be a bit more plantar flexed than it otherwise will be when we get to 30, 40, 50 yards or 30, 40, 50 meters. So when we're trying to master that technique to improve our movement patterns with speed, one of the best exercises that you can do is to focus on your velocity decrement. And that would involve pulling a sled 15 to 20 yards. So you put a 25 or a 35-pound plate on a sled, you attach it to a harness, you get set, you sprint 15 to 20 yards. You focus on dropping that shin and propelling forward down the track, okay, or down the turf, down the grass, wherever you're at. We want to focus on driving that chest forward. And we also want to focus on not letting that heel drop, but instead having that stiff ankle, that rigid ankle position to continue that propulsion forward. So you can use 8 to 10 reps with the sled, 25 to 35 pounds, depending upon your body weight, to improve that overall acceleration period. And again, that first key nugget has to be technique absolutely plays a major role in how you can apply a large amount of force to run faster. And don't forget, guys, if you want fast access to some cool freaking merch, make sure that you comment down below, you subscribe to the channel, and you have all your channel notifications on so that you can enter to win this free Swole shirt. You've got to show up Tuesday, YouTube Live, to find out if you've won this free shirt. Now, let's turn you into that speed freak. So how do you actually run fast? And again, I think we have to look at this through the simplest lens. Break down a race into 3 positions. You're gonna have that start phase. So when we're starting, we have to be extremely explosive. We wanna be really, really twitchy and able to overcome and generate a large amount of force in an extraordinarily short time frame. And that's gonna lead into that drive phase. Really, the entire race can be set up and established from the start into those first 4 to 6 strides. That will really determine everything, the outcome of the entire race later on. So that's where we have to focus on that steep shin angle. We've got to drive from the quads, drive hard from the glutes. As we lean forward, that's where we're going to transition into max mechanics. So as we go from the acceleration period to max mechanics, this could happen anywhere from 15 yards, depending upon the athlete, all the way up from 20 yards to about 30. We're going to see individuals start to rise with their chest. They'll get a little bit more upright and they'll start to ground more on that mid foot. while they're grounding on that midfoot, we've got to pay attention to how quickly they're switching. How quickly are their knees coming through? How rapidly are they grounding in that semi-squatted position? And then that's where max mechanics comes into play. When we have max mechanics, this is where we're gonna slow down the slowest. If we look at the best 100-meter sprints, they're maintaining speed all the way up to 80, 85 meters. So if we're testing in a 40-yard dash or even doing a 100-meter dash, we've got to be able to understand the start, the drive phase, and then max mechanics, and then understand how each exercise plays a role in increasing your speed. So what can we use to improve our speed out of the blocks, to improve the first 2 to 3 steps? And that's where we need to focus on the principles of blast impulse, okay? So blast impulse is gonna be repetitive in nature, and there's a large amount of force produced in a very short period of time. This is gonna contribute to some durational strength as well. So what can we do, what exercise or movement can we do to generate a massive amount of blast impulse that will lead to better times out of the blocks? And that's gonna bring us to this phenomenal movement pattern where we're gonna learn how to move heavyweight fast from an auditory start. Okay, and that's gonna take us to a 2-box power clean. So we've got DJ who's going to demonstrate this with that auditory command. And what this will do is it'll set that urgency. If we have about 70% of our best power clean max, so if we can power clean 100 kilos, we're putting 70 kilos on the bar. And then what we're gonna do as a coach is we're gonna set an auditory command. And we might say, DJ, get set. Are you prepared? And then he responds as quickly as possible. So again, what you want to do is even change that start position with timing, because some starters will hold someone for a little bit different periods. So the athlete has to focus on moving as fast as possible based off that auditory command. Okay, that's good. I would say do 5 or 6 doubles with that established sound, but change the time frame and then focus on being as twitchy as possible, because we want this to transfer to those first 2 to 3 steps. And that's where moving heavyweight fast, like doing a 2-box power clean, is gonna play a major role in dropping those times and increasing your speed. So what good is slowing down the slowest if we're not moving fast? And that's gonna take us into that next concept of sustained impulse. So we talked about blast impulse. Blast impulse is more like that boom, 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 boom. Sustained impulse is being able to uphold that over a longer time frame. So that might be 10 to 12 to 15 seconds. So that plays a major role in how we're going to apply a large amount of speed. And this is what we do inside of our At Peak Strength. We're trying to train people with impulse specific to their sport and their needs. That's gonna take us into that next concept, which is gonna be around absolute strength. One of the major portions around absolute strength is that we can actually increase our overall strength to then transfer to better sustained impulse over that 8, 9, 10, 12 seconds, whatever we're doing, okay? So when we understand what absolute strength is and how we can improve that based upon the speed quality for that specific sport. So inside Peak Strength, we're gonna use absolute strength exercises and then pair them with plyometric movements. So if we have a plyometric movement, that's gonna help us take that larger muscle that's stronger and a little bit more explosive, and now it's gonna become twitchier. When it becomes twitchier, it's gonna be more elastic. And we can train this with a method known as the contrast method. So if we're using an absolute strength exercise and then pairing that with a plyometric, now all of a sudden, we learn how to be strong, we learn how to be explosive, and we increase our ability to apply that sustained impulse. And we do this in all of our applied training in our app, Peak Strength. You guys can head over to peakstrength.app, the Google Play Store, the Apple iOS Store, and you can download Peak Strength for 7 free days. It's gonna give you 5 free workouts, and during those 7 days, you can cancel at any time. But now, let's give you an actual exercise pairing that you can use to increase your sustained impulse. Now, that absolute strength movement that you would get inside of Peak Strength when you have those 5 free workouts is going to be a single leg squat. Now, single leg squat is my absolute favorite absolute strength exercise to increase speed. And of course, I'm using my Garage Strength single leg roller with the Garage Strength single leg pad available at garagestrength.com. Now, if I do an exercise with the contrast method here, so we're gonna go, let's say a triple on each leg, boom, 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 okay? 1, 2, 3. We wanna focus on that posture. We wanna focus on targeting our glutes. Feel the quads driving up and the hamstrings extending the hip. Now I'm gonna rest 30 to 40 seconds. Try and recover, try to feel good, try to feel loose. If you saw when I did that single leg squat, when my right leg was down, I had a little bit of a hobble. My right leg is my weakest leg. I only have 2, so it's my weak leg. What I recommend as a coach is that we should be doing that leg first. And if we think about doing the absolute strength movement and then doing a plyometric, this is the contrast method like we mentioned, okay? So this is gonna help us improve that sustained impulse. Now, I'm gonna do a depth drop. I'm gonna land on my right leg and I'm gonna do 2 jumps. And then I'm gonna repeat that on my left leg. And ideally, you would actually have a way to measure and see, okay, this is how far I can jump off of my right leg, off of my left leg. And then the more we can unite that distance, the more speed you're gonna be able to maintain long term. So it's gonna look like this here. Boom, 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 okay? Just 2 jumps. Go to my left side. My left side will be better, I promise. Here, boom, boom, boom. Okay, so now if I land there, I can put a mark. I wanna measure that and just pay attention to that over time and even use that as a target. I landed there with my left. Now when I jump from my right on my next set, I need to make sure I can try to get to that same mark so I can improve my overall efficiency and increase my speed. Now, if we're gonna maintain strength, integrity, health, that's gonna help lead us to better performance over a full 100 meters or even doing consistent 40-yard dashes. Even if we're a basketball player, we need to make sure that we're doing things that's gonna help improve our size and strength and rates of coordination. And so this next exercise is probably the best accessory movement that you can do in regards to speed. Typically, I recommend if you don't have a bench like this, you can have a partner holding your ankles down. And this is gonna be a Nordic curl. So now, when I'm at the top, I wanna feel that hamstring. And this is gonna really target our semitendinosus. That's gonna help prevent injuries to our biceps femoris. So there's 3 parts of the hamstring, and typically the strength of the semitendinosus in comparison to the biceps femoris, if those are closer in their strength comparisons, that will actually prevent hamstring issues in the biceps femoris. Most hamstring issues are in that major biceps femoris. So now we're gonna get here, come down, boom, and pull through. Now, I tend to break a bit at my hips. That's okay, because when we're running, we will have a little bit of hip flexion. But ideally, for hamstring strength, we wanna stay more hip extended, okay? So have more hip extension. It's not gonna be perfect, but you wanna actually just try and focus on that. That's where you wanna go with the goal. So we're here, and again, I can already feel my hamstrings at the top, and if I have hip extension, that will help up here. Come up. Yeah, one more. I can actually feel that, dude. Some people who are tight will actually start to cramp in their calf. They might even feel a little bit of pull behind the knee. So go slow when you first start to do this, but over time, this is the best accessory movement to improve your overall speed and lead to better times. Here. Ooh. Okay, so that next movement is gonna be a high speed reflexive movement. And when we're thinking about training, we've got the technical coordination exercise. We gave you the 2-box power cleans. Okay, you could do that for 5 doubles, 6 doubles. Make sure you're following that auditory command. Then we did the single leg squats. Let's say with the single leg squats, we do 5 triples on each leg, you rest 30 seconds, you get into the depth drop into single leg bounds. And each time you would do that, you do 1 depth drop, 2 jumps. Do that for 4 to 5 sets. Then you go to the Nordic hamstring curls. You can do that for 4 sets of 7. Absolutely phenomenal. And you could pair that with this movement at a high speed. When we're doing something at the high speed, we're gonna see the transfer over to the track directly. And it's also gonna help with that sustained impulse, which is a key concept. If our sustained impulse is better, our blast impulse will have better supporting value, and in turn, we'll be able to run quicker. So this movement is going to be a drop dumbbell snatch. So we're gonna be here, okay? I'm gonna drop and come through. Now, I actually like for speed-based training to have my target a little bit lower. A lot of people will say, oh, raise that box really high, right? Because just innately we want everything bigger. But one thing we've got to think about is the shin. So if we're thinking about the shin and acceleration, this is where we want that box a little bit further forward and a little bit lower, because that's going to help us drop that shin angle, and we're going to feel the hamstring as we catch, absorb, and come through. So we go here, boom, 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 boom. Now, let's go a little bit quicker. And I can actually feel myself getting pulled to my left. So we can use this movement to try and get rid of any of those inefficiencies. So here, boom, boom. That was much better, more on target. One more, boom, boom. Good. So use the reflexive movement here. Use the Nordic hamstrings. That's gonna help improve your overall speed, and then that's gonna take us into the next aspect, improving our mobility. So what good is all this training if we're gonna be banged up and injured and we're not recovering to the best of our ability? That's where mobility is gonna come into play. So we wanna focus on the problem areas around speed-based work. So if we wanna look at our hips, our quads will also play a major role, and then we wanna even focus on our ankles and a little bit of our groin. That's gonna help determine what we need to be focusing on. So first, we're gonna start with a pigeon pose, okay? Easy stretch, and you would do these movements after a workout and even on your off days. So let's say it's after athlete day, day 3, inside of peak strength. We can get into pigeon pose here and just try and bring that back knee, notice that back knee, bring that to the box. And then ideally over time, I would be able to lay my chest over top of my hip or over top of my shin angle here. Okay, so that's one great movement. Actually, I'm gonna do my left side just a little bit so I have a little bit of balance. Now I can hit this 3 passes, 30 seconds each side. Next pose, we're gonna do a quad hamstring pose together. I'm gonna go here, hold, okay, so I got my quad, stretch, try not to pay attention to my really tight upper back. I'm gonna come down, ooh, and I'm gonna stretch my hip here, my quad, and focus on the stability and even try and lengthen my hamstring. Now I'm gonna do this on my right side, which is not as stable as my left. Hold that same position here, quad, 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 come down. Oh my God, hamstring and back hip. Okay, now we're gonna get into the next aspect. So we did the hips, we did hips again, we did the quad, and we did a little bit of hamstrings. Now, we had the PVC pipe roll in the beginning. That's a great exercise to improve the mobility in our ankles. I also like doing drop heel split squats here, and you can actually have the heel drop. Try and feel that lengthen through your Achilles. And if you have really tight hips, not hamstrings, hips here, raise this up, this upper shoulder, okay? Now we can do, let's say 6 on each side. And then I like to do, focusing it, if you have a problem with that plantar flexion when you're coming out of the blocks, you can have this isometrically holding. That's another thing that you can do. Make sure you do both sides for a couple passes. And then finally, my favorite all-time accessory / mobility movement is going to be for my hips and my adductors, Cossack squat. So I'm here, and we'll focus on full range. Feel this stretch in through my hip, but also in through my ankle. I wanna feel that in through my ankle here and through here. We can do 6 each side, try and hold for 15 to 20 seconds. That's a great pass through of mobility exercises that you can do 2 to 3 times a week to help drop those times and improve your overall speed. These are all aspects that you need to focus on. If you guys need help with your programming, head over to peakstrength.app. You can get those 7 free days of training. And the worst thing that's gonna happen is you're gonna get 5 free workouts. At some point, if you guys wanna be those speed freaks, you've got to begin your journey to attain that peak strength. Because remember, freaks, if you wanna become a champion, you've always gotta cultivate your power. Peace.